What is going on, Governor Chisgule here, and today we're going to talk about how to wage war and win some events as a free-to-play player. If you like Rise of Kingdoms videos where we talk about how to get value as a free-to-play player, you should definitely like and subscribe because that's the thing we're passionate about, and we are a sponsored creator in Rise of Kingdoms. Now, if you didn't see my previous video when I talked about which commanders to focus on first, I'll put a card up in the top. You should check that one out. It's related to this topic. This specifically was prompted. The reason I'm creating this video is because in response to my previous video where I won Mighty Governor, card up in the top, I said that it cost me something like $700 in resources and speed ups to have accomplished that. And someone, in fact, several people said, like, why am I even playing this game if, like, winning big events is so expensive? And what I'll say is that the way a free-to-play player has to play the game is very different. You can do a lot of the same things that a big spender can do. You just can't do them nearly as frequently, and they take a lot of time to build up, and you have to be far more strategic about when you actually go all in on whatever it is that you're doing. So in this video, we're going to cover two things. The first is related to waging war and tactics for that. The second is winning events and tactics for that. Hopefully you find this topic helpful, and if you do, leave a comment so that I know what you found helpful from this video. Now, first up, waging war. It's very, very different as a free-to-play player because, and let's just even jump over to my farm account to just give a glance. I know it's like, not quite the same. In fact, before I do, right, like a big spender has troops like this, right? Like a ton of troops. Their tech is maxed. But if you're looking a lot closer to what I've got on my mini is my farm account, generates a lot of resources. I send them over to my main and occasionally do other stuff on my mini with the troops. For instance, at one point I was joining rallies in this KVK experience. Card up in the top about starting a mini, if that's something you're interested in. And like as a free-to-play, you really should be. But that's not what this video is about. Right, so if your troop count looks a little more like this, much more modest, right? Your tech looks a lot more modest, right? My tech looks something like this. The way you wage war has to be different. Because the buffs that a big spender is going to get, maxing out things like combined arms, like 25% attack, 25% health, 25% defense, right? They could have T5 troops, but then they've got an additional 20% attack, 20% defense on each type of troop. You can't hold up in a lot of open field combat. What that means is the following. When you are waging war, you play a supporting role in the open field, and you should try to stay out of the open field, in my opinion, when you are waging war. Now, a supporting role means that, for instance, you're using commanders like Ethelfled to debuff enemies so that the heavy hitters hit even harder. Because it doesn't matter if your tech is maxed or you have no tech at all. If this skill is maxed on Ethelfled, then you are reducing the enemy's attack and defense and health by 30%, which is excellent. Excellent. It's very powerful in enabling your allies. And Ethelfled hits 5 targets with that debuffs. That is powerful. We're going to have an Ethelfled video coming up, by the way. And we've got a video, in fact, that we did in collaboration with Echo Gaming that'll probably be in his channel. If I haven't used up all my cards already, card will be up in the top, taking you to Echo's channel to check out his video that we collabed on. Anyways, so Ethelfled paired with, for instance, a Joan of Arc, who is going to generate a lot of rage, give a lot of buffs. This is a very powerful, very, very powerful, 100% obtainable free-to-play combination that is contributing in an extremely meaningful way on the battlefield. And sure, you're not the person who's just obliterating the most powerful army on the battlefield, but like, you're still having a really powerful impact. That's one way as a free-to-play player that you're having a big impact. Buffing, debuffing. The other way that you have a really big impact is by supporting defenses and rallies. By sending your troops into a rally, your troops gain the same buff as whoever is leading the rally. They have all the same tech level as the person leading the rally. So if the person leading the rally is a T5 player, you have just turned your relatively modest tech T4s into powerhouse max tech P4s supporting P4s? T4s supporting the rally. Anyways, I think I just confused power and tier in my head. In a similar vein, defending a flag. You can really tremendously help by bringing your troops to that battle, dumping them into the flag. Again, your troops get boosted in terms of power level to whatever the tech of the captain is. So it's very important that, of course, the right captains are in play. But as a free-to-play, with a modest amount of troops, you can only do so much of this style of support. You can only do so much of this style of support because you just aren't training troops at the same volume as someone who's spending lots of money. So you just need to be more modest in your contributions to those styles of attacks and defenses, and that is okay. Do not commit so many troops that you decide to quit the game because it's no longer fun for you, right? Commit what you feel comfortable committing. And if you don't feel comfortable committing troops to die, then committing buffing and debuffing in the open field is incredibly valuable and powerful. And I don't think it's advisable for a free-to-play player to be hitting a rally to get those buffs and debuffs going. I feel like that is, you're so low tech compared to the rally that you're just gonna, your army's gonna get melted like this, and you're gonna accumulate, 80,000 severely injured troops in the flash or blink of an eye. I don't know that that's exactly the play, but I would try to be doing that in the open field combat. And let me tell you, if as a powerful hitter, I don't have to commit Ethelflaed and Joan of Arc to the battlefield, that means instead I can commit other really important, powerful hitters. But absent someone else bringing Ethelflaed and Joan, I need to do it as the powerful hitter because they're too indispensable. It's too powerful to buff all 4 of my other armies and anyone else who's nearby with those buffs. So you're doing that is actually extremely meaningful for attack and defense. The other route you can go for open field combat is to use some combination of cavalry commanders. So for instance, if you're not going the Ethelflaed route or you're bringing multiple armies to the open field, you could do like Pelagius as the primary with Joan of Arc, and that also is a really great way of having cavalry to be a focused hitter on the battlefield, along with a whole bunch of buffs coming from Joan of Arc. Now, there's one other very, very, very important way that you can wage war as a free-to-play player, and that is by killing the farmers of the enemy. And you might be looking at me funny and go, like, how important is that really? If you cut off the enemy's resource gain, you're doing something very, very powerful. You're not only inflicting damage, you're cutting off their gaining resources, which is insanely disruptive and very meaningful. It is very, very, very meaningful. The way you would do that as a free-to-play player is to use a commander that has the mobility tree. Good news, there's a free-to-play way to do that, and that is Belisarius. Belisarius has mobility, which is excellent. You can run around and do serious work with, let's say Belisarius and Baibars, for instance. Both cavalry commanders run around, kill a bunch of farmers. The build that I would use for that, this happens to be Cao Cao, but the talents are exactly the same. Let's see here. That must be a build. Oh, I'm on my mini. I was so confused. Let me pull up my main to show you the build. Wow, was I confused. All right, back to the main. Let's get the build. Let's get the build. Hilarious. You're going to max out the mobility tree. Pretty much. Almost entirely. You're going to get some peacekeeping, and you're going to get charge talents. That's the short story here, okay? Bada boom. Here's what you do. This is what you do. In my opinion, this is the build you use. By the way, this is also the max speed you can have on a commander. So this is my Ark of Osiris build for being the very first person to go wherever I need to go. Separate topic for a separate story. Use Belisarius primary and grab these talents, leveraging hasty departure to get around the field and be nearly uncatchable. Also charge, really exceptional, so that you're definitely uncatchable after you get below 50% health. We've got thoroughbreds for march speed and 5 points over here for march speed. If you wanted to be a little more slippery and make an assumption that an enemy will catch you, then swiftness is a good pickup because that is going to give you 15% march speed for 5 seconds after the enemy hits you with a skill attack. Now, in terms of secondary commanders for that configuration, I like bringing, a cavalry commander like a Pelagius, who's really powerful. However, you could also use Boudica as a secondary for this configuration. And if you wanted the extra speed, then Dragon Lancer is actually quite exceptional for, like, look, 10% more march speed. That's what you need. So either Pelagius or Dragon Lancer, easy to max out the skills on. Dragon Lancer, the downside is obviously Dragon Lancer's not bringing nearly as much to the table stat-wise, but they are bringing the move speed. So if you're waging war, which you can do as a free-to-play player, you just can't be the person who's at the front line all the time, taking all the damage, tanking everybody, doing, taking a ton of damage. If you did want to be using infantry, which that's debatable, right? You need to be more advanced free-to-play player, and the one legendary you needed to have invested in would need to be a commander like Richard. Then you could use like Richard with either Sun Tzu or Scipio or I think I prefer Sun Tzu, quite frankly. You could go Ulji Mundok. You could have like a tanky army that's running around like that that tries to be, in the field in that way. I just don't think that's an A++ plan. Okay? So to summarize how you wage war, you minimize your participation in the open field, but when you are there, maximize the output, maximize your contribution by debuffing the enemy, buffing your friends, by killing their farmers, and by getting into structures where the power of your troops is amplified profoundly by the tech of your allies, both rallies and structures. Now, on the event-winning front, you too can win events. Not every event, not most events, but one event every now and then, where you go all in because you've saved up and saved up and saved up, and you can go in and try to win. Let me give you an example of events where, that's probably too hard to do, and an example of events where it's very doable. Very rarely, right? You can do the same things a pay-to-play player can do. You just have to accumulate that value over time before going all in on something. So, for instance, right now, this is an event where free-to-play really can't hang, and that's Summer of Babylon. And, the winner of this event will have trained 27 million, I think that's power of troops. 27 million power of troops. It is. They trained 27 million power of troops in this event to win it, to get a legendary skin that's questionable how good it really is, and it's really a status symbol, right? You're not really missing anything by not being in the top 10 for this event. And it's extremely exclusive. It's not the kind of event you can go in on. That's okay. The kind of event that you can go in on is one like this training day, although I think a better event for you would not be training day specifically, but one of the ones that rewards research and building and training. And in fact, I'll go a step further even. Even better than that would be an event that rewards only building. Because the people who train troops, they can't participate. Like your T5 players, the big spenders, they can't participate because they've maxed out their buildings, right? Not everybody still has buildings. A lot of people are focused on tech over buildings for their speed ups. So the building day event, I don't know what it's actually called by name. You could go in and pick up the 20 legendary commander sculptures at the top here by saving a ton of speed ups, then going all in on building a bunch of structures all at once. That is a thing you can do as a free-to-play player. And I want to point out, by the way, I know people that have done that. They win the building event. The other thing to think about as a free-to-play player is that in the early game, you might consider holding back a little. And you're going to have to use your judgment on this because you need to power up to be in a strong alliance, and being in a strong alliance helps you a lot. But at the same time, if you hold back a little bit, you can save up a lot of speed ups, a lot of resources potentially. Although you got to be careful about leaving a bunch of resources available to steal, right? Because somebody could steal them from you, and you look like a juicy target to hit. But you could wait until the Lost Temple is captured to go really ham with your speed ups, and that way you can do it in alignment with kingdom buffs, and that is really powerful because you're getting an additional 10% building speed, 10% research speed, or 10% troop training speed. Food for thought. Food for thought, okay? So that is how, as a free-to-play player, you can wage war. You can win events rarely, but you can do it. One other way, by the way, to win events, rarely, but you can do it, is to accumulate your action point potions. Let your action point potions save up and save up and save up and save up and save up until you then go all in on an event that awards you for having action point potions. That is an event you can also win as a free-to-play player. That is an event you can also win because people are just bad at managing their action points. And I mean, I find it hard to run out of action points. Like I'd be hard pressed to actually spend all my action point potions. And maybe that's because I've been around for a long time, so I've accumulated a lot. Maybe because that's also doing some amount of spending, and I'm accumulating them. Also, in part, because I'm in a good alliance that does a lot of forts. It's all related. It's all related. But that's another way you can win those events. So hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully this gives you something to look forward to and think about as a free-to-play player. I think the team camaraderie and all of the goodness that comes along with playing this game, the reward, it's all in here for me personally, and I think you could do that too as a free-to-play player. Focusing on it as more of like a collection and occasional battling game rather than a 24/7 battling game. Because, like, look, even the big spenders, we do not battle 24/7. We cannot afford it. I can't afford it. And I've spent a lot. It's ridiculous how much I've spent, okay? So hopefully this is helpful. If you did find it helpful, like and subscribe. And until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom.